What about compassion? How do you bring compassion into this in the book?
That's 100%. Let me just mention off on texting, because I think trying to have a healing experience in a text message could go well. It's just because we all have our subtle nuances of how we communicate, and so we miss out on body, eye contact, the visuals, all the things that are so important in communication. So if you are having a struggle, then I really say, get a phone call, get in person if you can, do something that you actually can get some visual. I just think that that's better. Compassion. That was your question. 100%. Compassion is the most important thing, but both directed both ways, towards self and toward other. Because sometimes our children, they expect a lot of us as parents. We're imperfect. We are imperfect. And they will sometimes have really incredibly unrealistic expectations of how perfect we're supposed to be when we can't be. So compassion towards self, so important.
Yeah, that's good. I just mentioned, I know I have a personal rule. My wife taught me this rule. If an email or a text goes sideways, we never respond. It's a never. We pick up the phone and talk. And that's the most courageous thing you can do. Sometimes we don't like to be courageous, but that you really need to, because otherwise it'll just keep going sideways. That's been my experience. I bet that's been your experience.
Yes, and your program is so wonderful, because it is all about bringing out courage in ourselves, which is so important in our lives, is to take steps that don't always feel comfortable. They're not always something that feels good. When a friend of mine once said, Debra, just because you made a good decision doesn't mean it feels good. I'm like, oh, you're right. So with our children, sometimes we have to set boundaries that don't feel good, because we want to be this all loving, all encompassing, all supportive. And they don't like it when we set rules and boundaries that says, you know what, I'm not going to give you everything you want all the time. Sorry, don't have it. Even if I had it, I don't want to give it to you all. Like I earned it. I want it. I'll keep it. I'll share.
Well, sometimes I guess my way of saying that, sometimes better give a resentment than get money, and not meaning you're trying to hurt somebody. But it's like you're setting a boundary, and that might give somebody a resentment. But you don't want, if you don't set the boundary, then you'll have the resentment, right? You'll feel like you should have done something.
And I heard a saying that I love: resentments are like swallowing poison and waiting for the other guy to die.
Now that's really profound, because I know that there are some family members that I know of in my family that have a really hard time of forgiving and letting go. So I'm wondering what your advice is on that.
It's always an interesting question, because I know there's so much written out there about forgiveness, and I have a kind of I'm not going to say it's unique, because I think many people have this as well, is that you can't really forgive someone who doesn't acknowledge that they've wronged you or hurt you. You can let it go, though, right? But forgiveness is an act. It's an action that you're giving to somebody who's taking accountability and responsibility for something that they may have done that wronged you, right? So if I say to you, hey, I'm really sorry that I hurt your feelings right now. Now you can forgive me. But I'm like, I didn't hurt your feelings. How do you forgive me? Because that's an action toward the event. But can you let it go? Can you decide that, oh, Debra's just like too much into her own head right now. She just cannot see this as something that she understands is probably wasn't very kind. So I'm gonna let it go. And sometimes that's valuable, and sometimes we let something go in a denial way, which is not so healthy. Sometimes we let something go because we really come to acceptance that somebody doesn't share our viewpoint, doesn't share the experience that we have. So there are different kinds of letting go. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. And letting go, of course, is forgiveness, and letting go is a choice. And, I know that, if I were to take this pen and drop it, right? It took willpower to pick it up. It took willpower to let it go. It was a choice. And, for a lot of things, that's how fast I know that we can forgive. Now, obviously this is somebody really injures another person or is abusive or what have you, or keeps doing something over and over again, it's very difficult to forgive that, right? You got, like you said, there's got to be some acknowledgement that this is going to stop before somebody can really go, all right, maybe I can let this go now.